When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they got together, and to disconcert him, one of them put a question. "Master, which is the greatest commandment of the law?" Jesus said, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. The second resembles it. You must love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang the whole law and the prophets also." Are you confused about all the rules and regulations surrounding COVID-19? Are you finding it difficult to tell the difference between what's a law and what's simply guidance or advice? Finding it difficult to keep up to date with rules that change from day to day or from place to place? I know I am. But no matter how often these rules and regulations change, the guiding principle behind them all remains the same: keeping each other safe. And if we keep that in mind, we won't go far wrong. Keep away from people that you don't need to meet with. Don't breathe on each other. Wear a mask or keep 2 meters apart. Wash your hands frequently. When the Pharisees asked Jesus what was the greatest of the commandments, they weren't looking for him to rank the commandments in order, but to give them a guiding principle. It's a question that the Pharisees often asked of each other, seeking to understand the principle, the guiding principle that lay behind all the plethora of rules and regulations that governed their way of life. When the prophet Micah was asked, "What does God ask of you?" he replied simply this: that you act justly, love tenderly, and walk humbly with God. And the prophet Isaiah, when he was asked the same question, he condensed the whole law into 2 commandments: that you preserve justice and do what is right. A contemporary of Jesus, Akiba, condensed the law into 1 commandment: love your neighbor as yourself. He was quoting the book of Leviticus, not Jesus. And another 1st century teacher, Hillel, summarized the law by saying, "What is hateful to yourself, do not do to another." All the rest is commentary, he said. Go and study it. And when the Pharisees asked Jesus the same question, to summarize the law, what is the greatest commandment of the law? Jesus answers with what we've all become familiar with. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength and all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. The problem with understanding Jesus' answer is we don't necessarily have a good understanding of the Pharisees' question. There's a film and a TV show and a book and a radio show as well, called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. In it, super intelligent beings design and build a computer that will give them the answer to life, the universe, and everything. They have to wait for millions of years for the computer they build to run its program, but eventually it gives them the answer they've been waiting for. 42. It makes no sense. But it makes no sense because they weren't specific in the question they asked. They didn't understand the question they were asking of deep thought, the great computer. The computer sent them away to design another computer that would come up with the real question. If we are to understand Jesus' answer, that the summary of the law, the guiding principle behind the law, is to love God with all your heart, mind, strength and soul, and your neighbor as yourself, then we have to understand the question in the way that it was asked. And the Pharisees and Jesus took something for granted that we might not. They understood that they were loved by God, and that the law was there to preserve a way of life that was lived in response to their understanding of God's love. Another way of asking that question, what is the guiding principle behind the law, or what is the greatest commandment of the law, is how are we to live in response to our understanding of the love of God for each one of us? So how are we to respond to God's love? How do you respond to anyone's love? The love of a parent or a child, the love of a partner or friend. You show love back. And you try and learn to love the things that they love. Show respect for the things that they respect. Share their values. How are we to love God? By loving God back and loving the things that God loves. What's the greatest commandment of the law? What's its guiding principle? First of all, to know that we are loved by God, always, eternally, good and bad alike. And knowing that love, to love God in return, and learn to love all the things that God loves, including one another and ourselves.